Hi,
Hey,
John.
hey guys, how are you?
We're so good.
W-
We're gonna
Welcome.
wait, I guess, because I don't really know what other classes are going. I don't know if you guys have a program in front of you, but I don't know what other classes are going on right at this moment. And if we might have some more people coming in because I thought it was at 2:30, but then our sign-in was at 2:15. So I don't know what time people think it actually starts based on the program. Do you know what I mean? Can anyone tell me what it says? Does it say 2:15?
Poppy told me 2:15.
Yeah, that's what I see, but
Does anyone see it on the timeline? Does it say?
Yeah, it's 2:15 to 3:30. And
Great.
then there's
cool.
also a broadcast and live stream one going on, and then all the young people and evaluation and those kind of things are happening at the same
Yeah,
time.
there's some other stuff. So people may pop in. And I was talking to Jane actually earlier in a one-on-one and was saying, we didn't really know exactly what we were going to do. She was like, I'm sort of terrified. I was like, well, don't be terrified because we really are open to what this can be, this little chunk of time.
Absolutely.
And, we can kind of chat at the beginning of this just based on kind of how everyone's doing and stuff. But John, you and I also talked this morning. Oh my gosh, John, what a great t-shirt.
I'm almost. I gotta plug in somewhere. I don't know where that. I lost my charger.
My patience is almost out. But David, especially you, I would love to have you introduce yourself a little bit because you're new to me. I don't know if you've met John before. We've met Jill and Jane before, but I would love to hear a little bit about what you're working on. And you said you're coming in from Oakland. So how's life been and what's your songwriting stuff you're working on and what brought you to our workshop with us, with me and John today? Can you hear me, David?
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, David.
Oh, yeah. Ask to unmute. Do you see how to unmute there?
Yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
there you are.
okay, yeah. I clicked the lower left there.
yeah.
Uh, okay. Okay, yeah. I'm I'm always writing songs, but and this is for theater, right? This is music for theater.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we're
Yeah,
kind of what we're centering on right now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I haven't done anything in theater in a while in terms of writing. I've been doing a one-person show until I broke my leg, and that was, last time I did any kind of show was 2006, 17.
Nice.
And yeah, but just going back, I wrote a musical back in the 80s called Doo Wop, and that made a lot of noise locally. I received the
Cool.
Berger Theater Critics Circle Award for that musical.
Wow.
It was going to go to It was going to go off Broadway in New York City, and there was some trouble. I think producers trying to steal it, but it was copyright, so we went to court and put a preliminary injunction on it. Yeah, but
Wow.
I never
Wow, that's
really got it out.
amazing.
So
Yeah, I didn't get it out, but it was
it was
on
never
its way.
it was never produced.
Um, it was produced locally, and the producer tried to take ownership, pretty
Wow.
much. I won't give out any names because it's local, and I wouldn't want to do
Wow,
that.
that's amazing. So you've had kind of that process and have gotten a show moving and maybe it didn't
Yeah.
quite get quite where you wanted it to go. Oh, Patty's here. That's amazing. We were just talking about Michael Silvershire and then Patty came in the room. Does
Hi,
everybody know
everybody.
Patty?
Welcome.
Patty,
Mike would love to be here, but he's going to do our session at 3:30. But he's not feeling great. He's up in Ashland, and the fires are just horrific.
oh
Oh,
my gosh. And it's so sad because my partner and I were dreaming of moving away from Los Angeles and moving into like the mountains of Eugene, Oregon, and then I realized it's not really going to be any different than what we're dealing with in California at the moment. I see Bobby down there. Just so you know, Bobby, we can't see you, but I see that you're unmuted, so hopefully you can hear us. But I don't think we can see your face. Can you see Bobby, John? Oh, there you are.
All right. He's
Bobby.
alive, a human.
Good. Bobby, you're also new to us. Where are you coming from?
Well, speaking of Oregon, I am in Vancouver, Washington, which is just a bridge away from Portland, Oregon.
So wait, you guys also getting the smoke then? It's bad. You're also in Washington too, Jane. Is it bad where you are as well?
It's just smoky, nothing like you folks.
Oy. It's so sad that it's literally connecting everywhere. Okay, we have another person coming in.
This is great. So many people. Fantastic.
Yay, I love it. And it'll be a great, we'll talk a little bit. I'm just kind of giving people time because everybody pops in. Sabine, is it Sabine? We cannot see you yet. Let us know if you can hear us. Hello. Hello. Yay. Hi, Sabine. Are we saying it right? Hey, where are you coming from?
Let me put my chat on. Or should I turn my thing on?
We can hear you. We can hear you. Nashville. You're in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool. Amazing.
Nashville. Wow.
Yeah, made our last record there.
All right.
We have good air here.
Yes, don't put in.
Not us.
We're from California though, but we're living in Nashville. Oh God, look at my head.
And your sky's blue. Is the sky still blue? Or is that's just temporary? Our sky's not blue. It's still blue somewhere, right?
It's, yeah. Well, if you put here in New Jersey and Nashville, looks like where Jane is, it's sunny. So the sun is out a few places, but the sun, I have an idea for a song. The sun will come out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh,
That, you know, and I'm thinking of a show. Let's call it Bobby. No, Joey. Arnie. We'll call the show Arnie. What do you think?
I like Annie.
I love it.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. We've got a guitar. Yeah, so John and I talked this morning, everybody, and we didn't really know who we were going to have come in. And we didn't want anybody to be freaked out by this workshop because it's not meant to be stressful at all. We thought we could sort of do an exercise of some kind and play a little bit and talk about what everybody's working on. And if somebody wants, and if we want to make this something, we have another person coming in, where we're doing also just sharing work and giving feedback on what we're working on during the pandemic. That's great too. Hello. How are you, Mary Claire?
Oh, fantastic.
Hello. Welcome. Where are you joining us from?
Alameda.
Alameda.
Oh, I'll leave it.
And I was just about to take my video off and eat my sandwich.
No, that's amazing. Please eat. But yeah, John and I are both here. We've done a couple workshops with West Coast Songwriters where we all shared or just talked about work. And we've tried to bring a little bit of a focus in to musical theater, which is what my background is in. And John is also a working musician in New York. And so, John, do you kind of want to take it from there and talk a little bit about what we chatted about this morning?
Yeah, sure. Well, hello everyone. Nice to see some of you again, and we're kind of overwhelmed by so many participants. This is wonderful.
Me too.
This is really, really wonderful. We've had small groups, which is great, but the more the merrier. I mean, well, you know, one overall theme that we've had is obviously during this pandemic, it's a difficult time in many different ways. For many people, many challenges. A lot of you are literally in the thick of it, in the smoke, and it's a lot big challenges. But you know, this is the wonderful thing about creativity, and the upside of right now is we all have 45-hour days and a lot of time to be creative, and so we're each of these sessions we're kind of just showing each other what we're doing and encouraging each other to to express ourselves and you know, exercise our creativity in any way that we can. And it's I think all of you have the benefit of being songwriters and you know, doing this on a regular basis. So now more than ever, we're encouraging people to do this. And you know, a little bit what Melissa and I were talking about today, as she just said, this is just as an exercise, really. Number one is if anyone has any work that they'd like to share, just anything they're working on. You know, we did it last time. People just spontaneously just playing a little snippets or of stuff that they're doing, or we welcome that. And then also we talked about this idea of maybe collectively just trying to come up with something, like take 20 minutes and, you know, pick a theme and, you know, one of you with a guitar or piano or something, we can just maybe just come up with like a little riff or a verse, or, you know, we're not going to write an entire production number,
Right.
but just as an exercise of collaborating, which is, you know,
Hi, Rick.
part of another big part of songwriting and something some of us have been trying to do with, you know, virtually trying to collaborate with one or two people, sometimes more. I've done a few of these videos. I have an off-Broadway show that got halted by the pandemic, but we just produced, took a long time, but the entire company got together and we produced a video of our songs. You know, it was an interesting but fun way for us to get back together and work. But, you know, I think even more so on the songwriting side, I'm working on a song right now with two friends in Tokyo and a guitar player in the West Coast, and we're just exchanging ideas. So with that said, you know, we just wanted to throw it out there and see if you guys would want to give this a try, and maybe a little bit of time. I know Melissa want to throw it around and see people want to.
And I want to welcome, so we have, just because it's probably going to be people joining us as we go. So I don't know, Jon and I talked about doing some breakout rooms. We only have an hour, so I feel like maybe it makes sense for us to all hang here together and just kind of spitball some things around. But Rick, you just joined us. Welcome, Rick. And Anne Marie, you just joined us, and welcome. And we were just kind of chatting about what Jon was just saying, was just filling in everybody that we've done a couple workshops. This is so cool because a lot of you are new to us, and it's amazing to have Patty in the room, because we were just talking about Patty and Michael Silvershare, and they're two of really the founders of this whole organization, and they go back to being two of the biggest kind of theater based and chill. I mean, Patty, you can tell everybody your background a little more than I can, but you guys have written so many amazing songs, really inspired in this world of musical theater, right? I mean, you can kind of give everybody your background in the organization. I think it's really cool to share with everyone.
Well, okay, Michael and I met in a theater company. I was an actress, and he was the original composer for a theater company up in Palo Alto called Theater Works. And actually, Theater Works just celebrated their 50th anniversary this year. And Bob Kelly just stepped down after 50 years. So Michael is really the theater writer. Mm-hmm. And I'm a lyricist. What he's written many originals, and with various companies, South Coast Rep here in Los Angeles and the Kennedy Center, he had some of his musicals performed. And I'm sorry that he couldn't be here, but he really wanted to. He's just not feeling very well, and we have a session in a little bit here that I guess we're going to be screening songs for something. So that went way back in the 80s. And then we were fortunate to start, because of the Songwriters Organization, which we founded. I had all volunteers, and one of the volunteers, she knew somebody who worked at Disney. Her brother-in-law worked at Disney, and she mentioned us to him. So we contacted the publisher. We were able to, they were working on a project and said immediately, we need some songs for this Disney rock and roll. So we took one day, wrote 5 songs, wiped out our savings account of $75 the next day, and went to a guy named John DiLoretto, who used to live in Palo Alto and was with the organization, and he recorded them for us, sent it in. 2 months later, we get the rejection letter, which I still have. and saying how hard it is to write for children's music. But I don't want to get too much into this. There's some fun stories here. However, our career started with Disney, where in the 80s we wrote the theme songs to like Gummy Bears and Tailspin, and wrote all the songs to the Little Mermaid sequel and the Aladdin sequel, and Donald Duck's Happy Birthday song. And then throughout that time, Michael continued to work in theater. And so we did all the Disney stuff. And currently we're working with the Jim Henson Company, where we have 2 TV shows on. And
Amazing. It's just amazing. And it's so inspiring for everybody in this room, because we're just going to kind of play and talk about theater and things. You know, oh my gosh, I mean, more people, Jon, more and more people are coming. I'm so excited about it. But in terms of just playing with an idea, maybe before we have people, anybody that wants to jump in and maybe share something they're working on that they're inspired by in this pandemic. I think we've all been talking a lot about what's happening in the world and stuff. I consider myself more than anything a lyricist and kind of a top liner, as you would call it. Jill, I know you write a lot of lyrics and melodies. Jane's a really beautiful lyricist, melody writer, and is also a beautiful pianist. I don't know what everybody would maybe want to contribute, but you know, in the theme of musical theater, I've been thinking a lot just about writing as I work on an album and a project on my own that is a musical based project, among other things, but just really being, I think in musical theater, one of the most magical things is just how direct and storytelling driven things are from a personal perspective. And I think that as we're all dealing with everything we're dealing with, we thought it could be fun to just play around with an idea of even just coming up, like Jon said, with a hook or a theme related to what's happening in the pandemic. Now, I don't know if people have things that are weighing on them right now. Obviously, we all have a lot of things weighing on us right now. But like we were talking about earlier, like when are we going to get to go out again? When are we going to get to go have like what used to be normal? Like I was thinking a lot today about just this concept of a new normal and what that means to us right now. I don't know if anybody has anything lick-wise they've been playing with on the guitar. Like I saw you've got a guitar, Bobby. Jane, you've got a piano. But if anybody had any thoughts they wanted to share, things they wanted to throw out there, this is kind of one of those vulnerable things. We all either speak up, don't share if you don't want to, don't chime in if you don't want to. But anybody that does, that has anything they want to kind of just jump in with. Casey, hi. And you just came in here. Please say hello.
I just thought it was, I was a little lost in Zoom land, but
no, it's okay. Welcome, please. Everybody's going to be kind of jumping in, we just said, and I know we're all coming from different classes.
I've been working on something that's kind of about the pandemic or
that's
about
amazing.
The pandemic, and I'd be happy to just like take total criticism. Like I'm,
you know, and maybe we can all take an idea off of it. That would be great.
I've done it like 2 or 3 different ways. One is a sort of story song about a nurse, you know, sort of struggling and separated from her child, and the other one is more kind of personal sad about my daughter. So I can throw one out there, and then if anybody wants to, you know, add in or say, hey, I love the hook or I hate it or whatever.
Sure.
I love to learn. I mean, I'm just all about learning. I'm still kind of just starting out and getting my feet under me. So
awesome. Even if it's something that just inspires somebody, it's great. It's a way to start out. That's great. Thank you for
okay, so I will share screen, share audio. That's the best way, right? And you want to see lyrics?
Sure. And hi, Jim. Welcome, Jim. I see you there too. We're trying to acknowledge everyone as you come in the room.
The thing is,
all right, let me stop it.
You won't be able to share the screen because
oh, you can't share the screen.
Did you hear the audio that way? Are you able to hear it or no?
Yeah.
Not very well, huh?
Soft.
Let me do it through the computer audio. I can do it. Just give me
give a listen,
and I'll get it sorted out. You guys.
And everybody can mute actually too.
When I get it sorted out, I'll be right back, but let me see if I can get it right. And meanwhile, I'll mute myself.
I actually don't think you can mute yourself or we don't hear it, huh? Sorry, this is the technical hard part of this kind of stuff, guys. So we're gonna have to figure it out. But I don't think you can mute yourself, Casey, or we don't hear you.
Melissa, you may, if you're the host, you may be able to allow others to share. If you go down to screen share, there may be the option for you to allow us to share our screens. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's allowing co-host.
Okay, got
That
it.
it's a similar thing, yeah. And then she'd be able to do that.
Share screen.
If
Wait,
yeah,
how do I do it? I'm so sorry.
Well, if you just click on share screen, it may show you options that you can allow us to do.
Advanced. Oh, I see. All participants. All participants. Okay, you should be able to now. Sorry.
It's earn while you learn time. It's okay.
We're learning this Zoom thing. Try it again, Casey.
That's weird.
Are you there?
yeah, she's muted.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I just unmuted myself. I'm just trying to find the.
Don't mute yourself.
Okay, let's try this. See if this works. If it does, great. If not, I'll punt and let someone else who knows more than me do this. How about that?
Turn it up.
Early morning,
How's that?
it's a lonely night. Like a morning, there's darkness in the night. It's a fearful world. It's a broken road. Brought me to this place. Looking for grace. A moment of grace, a minute of peace, a second when all the fighting might just for one breath cease. A moment of stillness in this frantic race. A moment of grace, looking for moments of grace. Through the window there's a gray sunrise. I wonder how this day dawns in my daughter's eyes. I'm sorry you'll wake up to a world so lost. We didn't know what we were doing or that you would pay the cost. But is that forgiveness there on your sleeping face? Is that grace?
You can tell me to stop anytime.
Yeah, stop it. I love that. That's actually great. It's such a great start. Thank you for sharing. I really go ahead and pause it. Yeah, go ahead and pause it.
Okay.
Thank you, Casey. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing. And I really love that you started with that. It's interesting because this is a musical theater based class. Like I'm listening from that perspective today for this, right? So even if that's, I don't know what you wrote that piece for, but I love listening to that. And even when that harmony part came in, you were talking about your daughter, and I was literally imagining it like a female and a younger female on stage singing at the same time. Like it could absolutely work. The thing that's so cool about musical theater now, if you look at a lot of these contemporary writers, and we can talk about this through this hour, but there's so many different styles. We've got Carole King on Broadway. We've got Sarah Bareilles on Broadway. We've got Sting on Broadway. There's all types of musicians writing for theater now. So it's interesting because that song was very reminiscent. I was telling, I love Jane so much. I'm obsessed with Jane, everybody, just so you know, in this class. I love listening to Jane sing. I really do. And I told her today she reminded me of Joni Mitchell. And there was something about that song that reminded me a little of like that Joni Mitchell quality, but the perspective was so nice if it were to be in a theater piece. Can you tell us what you're writing that for? Okay, was that just for fun or was it for a project?
More towards whole food, but not quite as.
It was actually, I was given an exercise. I was trying to learn songwriting craft, and there's a version of it that's a story song that's about an.
We're hearing some background noise on
I'm
someone's
gonna
mic.
mute
Maybe everybody
everybody.
could mute.
Mute everybody just in case, so we can make sure we're not getting other sound. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
All right, can you hear now? Is that okay? Is that better? Okay, so actually, it was an exercise. I was challenged to write a song, about the pandemic, and then to write it as a story song, and then come back and write it as a first person song. So that was, and I just did it last, like 3 weeks ago.
Really, really beautiful. Does anybody have any thoughts or want to contribute? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I didn't hear every lyric, a beautiful melody, but I heard a theme, a moment of grace. Was that part of it?
That's the
Okay.
hook. Yeah.
That's the hook. Okay. Now, and are you saying that the pandemic is an opportunity for a moment of grace, or we need to take a moment?
Looking for grace.
Looking for grace. Okay.
I mean, I can put the lyric sheet up in a PDF if you want, and then you can just.
That'd be great to see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
But
I think like in terms of the theater writing concept, if we're all working on separate things and it's easier just to share those things, that's cool. If anybody wants to chime in and show something that they feel inspired to just try and write something, that's great too. Yes, go ahead.
Well, so so what I do for a living is I teach music. Okay. I teach private lessons and I also teach classroom music. And when the March 16th, all the schools closed down and I was teaching a choir. Well, we couldn't even, you can't sing choir, what happens. It's quarter second delay. It's just crazy. It was crazy. But what I did was, let's look at this first.
Fantastic.
Oh, cool. And you can keep talking, Jim. You can just keep talking.
So I had, I'm in the middle of teaching this choir. And what am I going to do? And I thought, well, how about if I was preparing anyway for a choral festival, and my idea was to rewrite the words to Hallelujah, which has probably been covered by more artists than any song I've heard of in the last 10 years.
Sure.
And I thought, in fact, my vice principal said, well, you can't do the original lyrics, I'll get fired. I said, I know what you mean. So we were going to just rewrite it because the kids liked the sound of it. They're mostly 12 was the average age. I said, okay, what if we rewrote it, or you rewrote it? I didn't do it for them. But I led them in rewriting the verses to express how they felt about the coronavirus. And at first it was kind of like pulling teeth. I didn't want it to be Mr. Fowler's good idea. I wanted them to do it. And they came up with 5 verses. And I can share, I think I have them here somewhere. I have the video of it I can share too. But it's real inspiring. Now, it's lyrics. And I'd have to get copyright from them, but I'm sure they'd be happy to contribute if this turned into musical theater. Because I've never written for musical theater.
And in terms of the musical theater writing, we wanted to just get people inspired about it.
Well, let me see if I can find the lyrics and maybe let someone else
I think that Jon and I definitely wanted to play with, if anybody has an instrument there. We would love to play with starting something totally from scratch too, if we can. So yeah, like Bobby's got something. And I think if we can take 10 minutes before we jump into any other originals or any other pieces like that. And I love that we want to share this stuff because it's great. And I actually think just what Jim said, just to spitball off of that for a second, it's a great way to practice too, in terms of writing for musical theater, taking other pieces and reworking words just as an exercise. I've certainly done that as a songwriter myself. I'm sure we've all got experiences like that. And in terms of just like playing with something, as a writer myself, working in musical theater stuff right now, and Patty or anybody who wants to contribute to this, and maybe going off of what KC shared with us, taking that idea of a moment of grace or something like that, even if we take a separate idea for a second just to play with, maybe spitballing off of that, Jon, if you want to jump in with me. Like, I love that concept, a moment of grace, or maybe we go towards something like, just finding peace. I loved that theme of what you said too. Maybe finding peace. We're all struggling with that. But in terms of writing a musical theater hook, like if somebody wants to start playing something and then like Bobby, do you have a melody or could you just play some random chords for us? Right? Are you brave? Can you jump in?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Can you tell us what you're playing to?
Yeah, just playing a C, and then I go in an F. C here. And F.
Play together, we're probably going to have latency issues.
Yeah, and that's okay. But even thinking about what he's got kind of like these two chords going. So even just to play with like an idea, I'm going to grab my ukulele for a second because I can also play a C and an F. I don't know if I'm in the same key as you.
Oh, you know what? I gotta switch my.
He might be in a different key, right? But
Yeah,
so I would say if I could just share, if I could even just, I'm going to mute everybody for a second. And even if I could share like something that I've been playing with and working on in my own songwriting and writing in musical theater is sort of just kind of getting myself to start writing stream of thought, no matter what that is. Even if it's sort of a journaling version of that. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in and share about this, but a lot of times, you know, those voice memo apps and being able to, like you were just doing, if he was just doing a C and then moving into F, I'm just taking those two chords just because that's what you just did, right? And if I were even just to say, how do I find a moment? It's like even anything, right? Even if I were just to say, how do I find a moment of peace? Just that one line. Can you play with that, Bobby? Just like taking a chord and just trying to come up with a hook of some kind, and we'll play with it, a couple of us, and jump in. Oh, he's muted. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
There we go. How do I find a moment? A moment. How do I find a moment? A moment.
Yeah, and if it were to be a musical theater song, the thing that's so great about musical theater is that that could be a hook, right?
Yeah.
But it could break into so many things, right? Like Jon worked on Lin-Manuel stuff. I mean, that could literally be, how do I find? And then it could turn into this like, I knew when I was younger, I knew when I was fighting, I knew when I was younger, like whatever. It could go into so many things. Like, what did I know then? How am I feeling now? Like, isn't that sort of like so cool about the Lin-Manuel stuff you've worked on? He just has these takeaways, Jon, right? Like he'll have a hook and then he'll break into these pieces that are just totally stream of thought.
Yeah.
Well, this is a nice simple riff, and already we've come up with some nice seeds of ideas. I mean, what if even for that space of time, these are like about, you know, it's a slow tempo, about 2 measures. I mean, I don't know, what if whoever wants to chime in, we each take that same amount of time, and then, you know, and share their thoughts over that. I don't know.
Yeah, take this, like we only have 2 chords going, right? Who can play a C and an a C and an F? Yeah, so like we just said, if you want to just play and see if you want to chime in and see what comes out. Hey, C.
Are we singing?
Yeah, if you want to just improv or come up with anything around that.
Ashfall in the gray San Francisco sky. The world is burning all around. Tears are caught with ash, and I know it will pass. Ready for someone else to take it?
Yeah, nice. I love it. I love it.
Anybody else? Jim?
Yeah, Jim.
I can't sing that. I'm going octave lower.
Down the off.
This virus known as COVID-19 has ravaged all our communities. The music in the air is filled with sorrow. Death will cast its shadow on tomorrow.
So nice, Jim.
They wrote the words, I wrote the music. We'll leave it like that. Just they get copyright.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank
I
you.
love it. I mean, the thing that's so cool is like, you know, when it comes down to this type of writing, and I think that, you know, if we were to actually go in and analyze all these different types of writers, a lot of the people in this room are singer-songwriters, right?
Right.
But a lot of these shows that are coming out now, and that's why we wanted to bring a little more of this conversation into West Coast songwriters, they are written by singer-songwriters, you know? And there is a lot of this type of music. I think people feel like, oh, well, that's not my world. Who's to say? I mean, the thing that's so wonderful about musical theater is that it's just really authentic and very, like, the conversations come from a very, not on, I don't want to say on the nose, but in a very vulnerable and accessible place for people. There's something about theater on stage that's very accessible for people. And so I think that it's, you know, it can be so many different things. And so even just playing with an idea like that is so cool, just to hear people even just taking a couple chords.
Well,
You know?
let's keep going.
Keep going. Anybody else? Yes, yes, yes. Mary Claire.
Okay.
I don't have a chord, but I was thinking the sky is orange, but nothing rhymes with orange, right? So you couldn't do anything with it.
Well, anything can rhyme with anything if it's a certain way. You know, I think that's
cliche that nothing rhymes with orange, but yeah.
I know that Michael Silversher would find some sort of way to rhyme something with orange. You know, that's the fun thing about theater writing too, is that you can do such playful things with words, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Could
yeah.
you say just a little more also though, in terms of the singer-songwriter, I don't have any musical theater songs right now, but just that it seems like you kind of have to have the book and the characters and, you know, I don't say like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but in your experiences, maybe Melissa and Jon, so do you write your song, a bunch of songs first and then string the story together, or you've got a book to work off of? Can you just say a little about that maybe?
There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, there's any combinations. You know, some people will sing a melody into a tape recorder, into a phone, and then they bring that down. The ideas get fleshed out. Some people just a song just comes out, or you know, it's a combination of lyric writer and the music writer. There's no right or wrong way. It's you know, it's as Melissa was saying, and it's true. There's so many different styles of traditional musical theater and pop writers and rock and roll writers, and you know, I mean, so it's there's no right or wrong answer. It's like whatever the process is for you. That's
and in terms of characters and story, I think that stuff can really change. And I think that, you know, a great example, I just listened to a great podcast about Lin-Manuel Miranda's first show that he wrote in the Heights, and it's not what it was when it started. You know, what you see on stage now is not the first show he put up. There was full characters and storylines in there that got cut, that got taken out and removed. You know, this stuff gets edited, changed. And also when shows go to previews and go to the Broadway experience at that final stage, things are still getting changed. You know, so I think that people don't realize that. I mean, I remember seeing a friend in a preview of a musical. 2 weeks later it opened, and I remember going back and seeing it, and my favorite number got cut. And I was like dying laughing because I thought I was waiting for 2 hours and the song never came. And I was like, I thought that song was so cute. And he said, I know they cut it. And I was like really in shock. So anyway, it didn't even end up in the final. It's crazy, but these things change so often for writers that I think that it also can really depend on what actually works once you get on stage. And I think that, that really changes. You think that laughs or moments are going to work in a certain area, and you end up having to go back, just like with any song, I guess, whether we're in musical theater or not, and doing rewrites if things didn't work, in that moment. So I think that, yeah, like Jon said, I'm working on a piece right now that's changed just based on what's happening in the world, because what I was writing before COVID-19 is feeling a little dated right now, because the world feels so different that the actual process of writing it feels different, so it's getting affected by, so yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Right, for musical theater, should you be thinking more about writing duets and trios or choral, where there are multiple storylines, or
I don't know. Again, I think that we can all kind of chime in on this in different ways, but I really do think that depends on the story you're writing. When you look at a story like Rent, where the entire musical is done through music, but so many of those pieces, you can break down the pieces that are more conversational, like Hamilton too, right? There's conversational pieces, there's solos, but it flows based on the story. Now, again, I think that a lot of, if you read books, and Patty, I'm sure you could give us so much advice on this, but there's a lot of people that will give you a lot of pieces of advice on how to go about that. I've read books that say, you should be writing your full book first. You shouldn't even have any music written. You should know exactly what's happening in your stories, and then have the music eat away at that story. To me as a writer, that has not made sense. I'm a songwriter, so I want to write songs, but I've found that those songs get either completely moved, changed, and positioned. Things got to be flexible until you figure out the arc of your story. And the story is the most important thing. And I would say that for shows that have not made it on Broadway, generally it comes down to something story-wise not connecting to the audience.
Well, that on the darkest side of this, Paul Simon wrote a piece called Cape Man, which lasted about 2 minutes on Broadway. It literally lost more money than any show in history. And what was going on there is he's an amazing songwriter. There's no question about that. Historic, just one of the greatest, and influenced and moved so many people with his stories. But he had no experience in musical theater. He had this idea, and he got this great team around him, but he refused. They're like, his shows can only be roughly 2.5 hours long. He refused to cut anything. I'm Paul Simon. So, the show would have been like a week and a half long, and he would not agree to any cuts. And so, the thing, like, it died, it crashed and burned, and I worked on a show called Tale of Two Cities, which they were calling Les Mis Light. And it was the same thing. I mean, it got to the point where the conductor would come into the pit and he'd start reading us. It's terrible. He started reading us the emails from the composer. This kind of the same thing.
It's so sad. It happens to so many.
For 8 years, it was her baby. It's the only thing she's done, and she refused to make any cuts. And the same thing. The show lasted 4 months, and it died. So but with that said, those are extreme examples. These are shows that have already made it to Broadway, playing a paid audience. But with that said, there has to be some flexibility, and it's things are constantly morphing. But
it comes back to story, and the story being something. I mean, when we look at really great pieces that really worked, it's perspective, fresh perspective. I think I also had a similar experience. I'm not going to say too much, but a musical, my first equity job was in Los Angeles in a musical called Dangerous Beauty that never made it to Broadway. It was written by two really, really great songwriters, Michelle Borman and Amanda McBroom, that wrote The Rose. So if anybody knows Some Say Love, she wrote The Rose. She's a beautiful songwriter. Just so you guys know, this was my worst experience in theater ever. I was fired 2 weeks in. I was 24 years old, had done nothing wrong. It was a very politically bombed show that never went to Broadway. And it was the same thing Jon's talking about. A lot of stuff that just did not work in the room.
I think one thing that's really important is that usually in theater, traditionally, the song will move the story along.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
the story is very important, but the song doesn't just come out of nowhere. It
Nope.
needs to move the story along.
Right. And as actors, we have this idea, right, that when we don't know how to say it, we sing it. There's got to be a reason you sing, right? So when a song is well placed and really works in a show, or like these shows that are written now, when the music never stops, how do you actually create these transitions? I think Les Mis was one of the first shows that was kind of like, I mean, there were so many shows like that that are written with no dialogue, but it was a show that had beautiful themes that came back. You know, Lin-Manuel is a writer like that. But in shows not like that, This Is Dangerous Beauty, like the one I got that I had that experience with, the book was really struggling around the music, I guess, is a great way to kind of say what Patty was just saying. The book was really struggling around the songs. The songs were really beautiful, but they had not figured out how to blend the book writing with the songwriters. And so there was a real conflict in the room. And then the choreographer came in and it all just became a big mess, right? So a lot of times it can be too many cooks maybe in the kitchen with different ideas. So if the ideas aren't focused as well, I think that's what really works about the team. Certain teams and songwriting teams like Patty and Michael, you can say that, like, right? It's certain songwriting combinations and teams really work as well. Pasek and Paul.
Yeah. How do you get songwriters together to really,
I mean,
really
that's an interesting
come together
thing. How do you
with
find
theater?
each
Because theater is so different than songwriting, you know, and that's been a big issue with a lot of theater pieces come together with songwriters who have never written for theater. You have to have some sort of idea of story form.
Well, it's like any collaborative process. You know, I worked on Next to Normal from the very beginning, which started out at the New York New York Musical Theater Festival. It was called Feeling Electric originally, but Tom Kitt had a band in the 90s in Los Angeles called the Tom Kitt Band, and the drummer from that band's a very close friend of mine. And the songs from Next to Normal are from the Tom Kitt Band originally. You know, he got together with Brian Yorkie and the team. You know, it's sort of like, you know, meeting your soulmate. You know, and I think any band, any great songwriting team, I think it's like you find yourself in the right place and you're hanging out, you start talking and you find common interest and you toss ideas around and cards get thrown on the table and it, you know, the combination sort of worked. I mean, you know, that book itself, you know, won the Pulitzer Prize and some of the most beautiful music, and they fleshed it out. And sometimes it's just from scratch, but, and you know, unlikely combinations, you know, in many different scenarios too. Of people coming from outside of the quote unquote theater world. But another thing that happens a lot, many shows they have new directors. There's been shows that have, a lot of these Broadway shows, they go out of town and they test the waters out of town. A full blown production gets tested, you know, for 4 or 5 weeks out of town before they move. And sometimes they have to bring in a script doctor or other consultants who come in who have experience in musical theater, and what they do is they kind of direct the storyline and the songwriting, so it works. So that kind of type of storytelling, whatever they're trying to do, works.
And just to go off what Jon just said, that's what we were going through with Dangerous Beauty. So they had already finished the score, they had already finished the book. This was already done at that point, right? So at this point, poor Amanda and Michelle were sitting back while everybody else was sort of doctoring their show. And that's when it really got messy because there was a lot of different people trying to come in with their ideas. Sometimes it creates magic and sometimes it just doesn't really work. And it's really interesting because the other thing is theater is very brutal in that way. People understand what's working and not, and sometimes they just start cutting. I mean, an amazing story for those of you that have gotten to watch Hamilton. My friend Leslie Odom Jr. plays Aaron Burr in that production. If you've gotten to see it on Disney Plus, he won the Tony for that role. I remember seeing Leslie in a cabaret years ago, and he talked about his experience in Jersey Boys in San Diego before it went to Broadway. He was one of the original guys, like singing backstage, doubling Frankie Valli and Jersey Boys. And when it went to Broadway, they didn't take him. And he just won a Tony for Aaron Burr in Hamilton. So Jersey Boys, right? You never know, guys. You never know.
I'm going to have to leave. Unfortunately, I have a evaluation at 3:30.
Great to meet you.
But I would love to spend more time with you guys.
Thank you for joining us, David.
Maybe somewhere down the line we'll meet.
You guys, I need to leave as well because I have a 3:30 session and I need to go get my dog walked.
The best.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay. Bye, you guys. It was wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much.
See you. And Bobby, go ahead and ask whatever question. I see you raising your hand there. Unmute.
I'm just curious, you know, I've written songs before that feel like they're worlds in and of themselves. And so the question I have is, you know, can you write a musical around a song that if it's really such a deep bass note of the universe, you know what I mean? You lucked out and tapped into a gold mine and there's so much more to say than the song contains. Can you start with a song and then?
I ask you a question. What is the story in that song? Do you mind sharing?
Oh man, well I have a few, but there's one in particular about a little boy that the verse is, "This is my room and it's robin's egg blue and it's got a few cracks in the ceiling." And it's about a boy that's living in a terrible place, but the chorus is, "If there's no hope, tell me why, in my dreams I can fly."
Well, I would say, to answer your own question, is there a story there for you? You know, I mean, I think that when it comes to, like, it's really interesting. If I can share something personal about my own writing experiences, I'm working on an original musical. I've been kind of on a little bit of a break over the summer, but I have a co-writer on it who's done a couple cabarets with me named Charlie. But the musical's loosely called Mothers and Daughters. It's a musical about a young female my age who has lost her mother, who is now running a workshop between mothers and daughters. So she's lost her own mom, but she's now running this sort of therapeutic workshop between adult women and their mothers. So women my age, I'm 34. I'm not an 18-year-old. I'm not a child, right? It's young women all in this workshop with their adult mothers, right? So that's what the show's about, which is poignant to me because of my own relationship with my mother who's here. But I lost my father 2 months ago. So isn't the story a little different for me now? I can sort of go back and almost rework some things based around my own emotional experiences. I don't know where that story is coming from for you, that song. Yeah. But what I would say is take that little boy, put that song at the center of a piece of paper and start bullet pointing some points around it and start saying, where do I start? Is he first at home with his crappy parents and then he moves to this house, or what's the story? Start making up a story, even if it's just you in your phone going, okay, so first he's really confused and then he's a foster kid and he's actually in foster care and he's moving to this house, and now I said foster care because I'm reading a story about that in a book right now. But who knows? Maybe there's a whole musical about a child in foster care just waiting to be born. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, based off what you just said, like it's just up to your creativity now to branch off of one song. If you want to start there, that's probably its own challenge, but why not?
Yeah, I wrote that song 8 years ago, and it's funny because I have songs now that are like, that could inform this 8 year ago me. And
start building your map.
Right. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And I would say also it's a great practice to when you bravely take on like if you collaborate and it's a style of music or a style of writing you haven't done before, is to look at is to study a little bit, or as much as you can, of the greats, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, get some cast albums, you know, get some videos of some numbers and see how they're telling the story. And just, not that you have to copy that, but see how it's done. See how are these stories told, and it'll, even if it doesn't sink in right away, you'll sort of get an idea of how the entire story is being told through singing and dancing and you know, and everything else, and how the song, if you listen to the song by itself, with your eyes shut and all that stuff. Just if you study a little bit more, get familiar with the genre, so to speak, which is very broad. And and in terms of the storytelling and like, I was just thinking as Melissa was talking, we were talking about sort of the worst case scenarios, but the other thing I always think about is what is it about this show that works? Why does it work? What is the combination between the songs and the storytelling, and and the movement too? Like why is it that all of that why is that combination so perfect? So I think the more you explore that, then it'll all help. I think help direct you and answer some of those questions.
Yeah, there's so many different versions.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
I was saying that I have a mentorship opportunity with Stephen Schwartz, and I'll try to reach out to him. And he is generous with his advice and time, and it has been with me. So maybe get his ideas of where I could start mining for that education and information.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, just like Jon said, there are so many shows that do things so differently. I've worried in my own writing, and we'll get to you, Casey. I've worried in my own writing about, is this going to work? Just a bunch of people on stage talking about their lives. I'm like, well, it worked for Chorus Line. That's a bunch of people on stage in a line talking about their lives. I don't know. It worked. There was something that worked. I'm thinking of other shows. I tried to just think of another show where there's somebody in a room living out an entire musical through their imagination. And I just thought of one. Kiss of the Spider Woman's a great example of that. Kendra and Ev, I don't know if you know the show, but it's a musical about two men in a prison cell. And this young man is living out his fantasies, this young gay man, through his favorite actress. And she keeps appearing as the Spider Woman. And it's Cheetah Rivera, and she's like coming on and dancing, and like, it's a whole musical based around a man having fantasies about his favorite actress, but it's devastating. I mean, this musical is devastating. He wrote Chicago, he wrote Cabaret. I mean, this is a great songwriting duo. Speaking of songwriting duos. So it's definitely, there's so many, and that's a very jazzy kind of very broad, old school Broadway kind of show. But point is, styles combine in many ways. Like Next to Normal, you were just talking about, that is such a cool show, and it's such a small cast. How many people, Jon? 5?
They're the leading it's just four real like characters that it centers around. And and the fact that, as I said, this came from a bunch of songs from Tom's band. These were just songs. And and
amazing.
It's like there's no right or wrong way to write a show, but that's amazing. You have that mentorship with Stephen Schwartz.
Awesome.
I've heard, I have some friends that have worked with him, and I heard he's amazing, and eternally youthful, and just in his own efforts, which has got to be inspiring. So yeah.
Awesome. Casey, what did you want to ask?
Practical question. You've kind of gotten the creative juices going, and I started thinking about, like, as a songwriter, when you write something and you want to test it and see how it's working, you go to the local wine bar and try it out in an audience. Or nowadays we do it and put a CD baby out there and see if we get any fans. Mm-hmm. But how do you test your ideas as a musical theater writer when you can't get a choreographer and a cast and 5 people to show up at a stage and
you're talking about right now, or
whatever the new normal is. I'm just saying, as a writer, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued. I have something I kind of like to take a go at, but
it starts
at how you do that iterative process of getting feedback and fixing it.
Almost every single show, like the same as with a screenplay. It starts with a table read. Uh-huh. You call up some friends. Nowadays you go on Facebook. It's like I want to try out some songs and try out a script, and they get together at their house with a piano and some scripts or lyric sheets, and they just sing through it. And then it moves on from there. If some people are able to, they go to a community center, or they rent a rehearsal space, and then they rehearse a little bit, and they work out a little bit of this and that, however much more they have, and they invite a couple of friends to it. you know. And then if you have some connections in the industry, I've done so many workshops with amazing unknown people, like world-class people, whatever. And they bring people from regional theaters and local theaters and money people they know. Some of them are businessmen. That's like the next step. And then the idea is to get it produced, and then it goes on and on and on. And in some cases, it ends up in a little community theater. It ends up in a off Broadway. Ends up on Broadway. Almost every show, and it could be a long or short process, but in general, that's sort of how it starts with friends, you know.
All relationships. It's all building relationships with people, and you know, like even with the project I'm working on, my partner in writing it is somebody that is just a pianist that I worked with, right? But eventually the goal is to, just like Jon said, you know, invite a couple girlfriends over and give them each a bottle of wine, encourage them to drink it, and then and then let them read my script with me while I cry the whole time. No, I'm kidding. But it's kind of that, though. It's true. I will probably cry the whole time and be very nervous and let them go through it with me. Now, my view as the songwriter with Charlie is that they're not really going to know the songs, but I'm going to hand them scenes, and they're going to be my readers so that I can then be ears and eyes just listening and giving notes, because it's one thing to read and go through things in your head, and then partly also to get feedback. I think also when you start figuring out what things really work or doesn't work is when you get it in front of people. You know, I had a student the other day, yesterday, in a lesson with me, and she has a song she's working on, but she was feeling kind of down, and she pulled out a Waitress song and she sang the first verse and chorus of She Used to Be Mine from Waitress. I don't know if you know the song. She literally couldn't even get through this piece of music without like bursting into tears. This is such a beautiful piece of music. And I'm sure that's what it's like for these actresses when they sing through it the first time. You know, sometimes music just really works, but you're not going to really feel what's happening until you are up in front of somebody else that also doesn't know it. That's not part of the creative process. So you really do need that. And I think that's the tough thing. I remember doing a table read for one of my dear friends' film, his first full-length film. And just to watch him sit there and take notes, he asked everyone in the room what they felt about the characters. That's all he wanted to know. And he asked for that feedback. You have to be willing to sit and expose it and then be willing to kind of get some feedback from people you trust. So that's where I would go first, is starting with people I trust to sit with me and be honest with me about, you know, part of the reason I'm working with my songwriting partner, for example, is I showed him my opening piece from my musical, and I was scared to show it to him, but he was really moved by it. He wanted to get involved with me. You know, you want people to like give you good feedback about your work. So I do think that it is personal connections, and then hopefully going off of that and finding other people that are going to put the passion in because they like the project you're working on too. You want to find your team. For me, it's about finding a team of people to get behind it with me.
And Casey, you know, just nowadays with these like a cappella videos that people are making, which is like a fun way, eventually, you know, could be, if you want to get it out there further, if you feel like it and comfortable with that, is you get a few people and you make a video and you're satisfied with that, you can put it out to the world or you know, or friends, and just say, hey, we just did these 2 songs and what do you think? You know, or not even ask for feedback, but you know, we have an opportunity in social media to get things out if we feel like sharing it, which is, you know, a nice step.
And in the musical theater world now too, songwriters ask other singers to sing their stuff, you know. I have a lot of friends in this world that are, you know, one of my girlfriends that she debuted in Waitress on Broadway, but I saw recently there's another songwriter in that world, and she put up a really nice video of her singing an original that musical theater writer had written and sent her and said, hey, will you sing this for me? You know, I'm not a singer, but hey, I'm a writer and I would really love for you to sing my music, you know? So we only have a little bit of time left. I know I have to jump off and go to another class after this, but this was amazing. I cannot believe how many people just came to this class. I'm so excited about it. But Mary Claire, are you raising your hand? Did you want to ask a question?
If you can answer 1 minute each. You just said something about the opening number, and it seems like that's got to be golden. I mean, the whole thing does. So if you could say a little about that. And then the other thing is just briefly on wending and choreography. I have a daughter who's a professional modern dancer, and I've thought of ideas of that. There would be more dancing maybe. And I thought, oh, you could have Martha Graham and Agnes the Mill, or, you know, kind of a thing. But anyway, so if you can, you know, give us a minute or two on that. Those.
Yeah, like opening numbers, you know, I think I've certainly struggled with the things that I've been working on in my own world. You know, I remember seeing Lin-Manuel talk about the Alexander Hamilton number in Hamilton. And he said he spent a really long time working on just that one piece, because he knew that if the entire show was going to be called Hamilton, like him introducing himself, Alexander, like it kind of needed to be awesome, you know? So it's like, it really, I do think, I don't know if I would say an opening number would make or break anything. I think that the entire structure of a show and how the themes connect is really what makes or breaks whether a show really works. I mean, Jon, we can both kind of comment on that, but when I look at certain pieces of music, take a Les Mis, I don't know if anybody is necessarily going to say they remember the opening number of Les Mis more than they just remember, you know, like all the music, the themes in that music. Like Hamilton, you know, the opening number, dun, da, 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 dun, 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 is not just the opening number. It's a theme through the entire show, you know? So it's hard to say it's just the opening number, right? I don't know. Jon?
I wouldn't get too caught up in those details. I mean, that's that's like, you know, finding the frame and where am I going to put it on the wall. I mean, those are the last steps, or what color am I going to paint the wall behind it. I wouldn't get too caught up in that stuff. You know, just write, you know, and you know, collaborate if you can, and you know, and just get it out there, and then and just keep going with it, and you know, be patient and kind to yourself, and be open. More importantly, be open to ideas and criticism. I think that's more important, and it'll all fall into place. You know, it might take 8 years, and then suddenly you're on Broadway with this, and your opening number is completely different. Who knows? But it's, you know, those are details. I don't think you really have to be too concerned about overall, or to say it's this or that. It's black and white, because there's you know, there's so many different colors and shapes, you know, in musical theater. It's a story. It's a story. It's like saying, this is how you write a book.
Right. And the stories just need to be human, you know, and coming from even an actor perspective, if I can give anybody from a singer and actor musical theater perspective, not as a writer, just as a singer and as an actor who works in that world, who interprets a lot of music, if I could say anything, I would say we look for music. We look for I want songs. We look for songs that are clear and direct and emotional and authentic. And, you know, the best shows are the ones that have music that speaks to us in that way, that says things in a different way. You can go back to the one song glory moments from Rent, songs that were really just poignant when they came out, you know, they said something a little different in a different way. So, you know, no matter what you're writing, whether it's your opening song, your last song, it doesn't matter. Do the characters want something deeply? And does it matter life or death to them? And, you know, what is the stakes? What are the stakes? Like, that's what we look for as actors, like good stories with great stakes and with high stakes and with something that we can be emotional about and really give ourselves to. So Mamma Mia has that, even if it's funny, you know? So Mamma Mia has like literally the loss of a daughter to you know, she's letting her baby go. I mean, my mom literally sobs through that film. I'm like, Mom, it's supposed to be happy, you know? But it's like, it's emotional, right? It is. So it doesn't matter if it's happy. It can be so emotional. There's gotta be heart. That's what matters. You gotta have all you really need. Yes, Jim.
I am going to leave. I'm not looking for the last word, but Casey, thanks for your song.
Yes,
thank you all for
thanks for
really
sharing, everybody.
Melissa, thank you for your enthusiasm. And Jon Berger, I think you should get a new shirt that has a green stripe all the way across.
Yes.
Because you've been very patient.
That is so true. Everybody, I have to sign off too because I do
All
have
right.
to go to some other classes. This was amazing, and I'm so glad everybody came. John, you're the best.
Yeah,
I have my moments.
Yes.
that's what we all do.
Mary
Thank
and
you.
Jane and
Bye for
everybody
now.
that's in here. Thank you so much for joining. We will see you soon.
All.
Bye.
Be safe. Bye.